Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship, the UES Thunderbolt. He looked out at the black space filled with stars. Today was different. Today, something big was going to happen. His crew worked quietly at their stations, checking systems and getting ready for what might come. The warning came from Lieutenant Kevin Walsh at the sensor station. "Admiral, we have something on long-range sensors. It's big, really big." Morrison walked over to look at the screen. What he saw made his eyes go wide. Hundreds of dots were moving toward Earth. They were coming out of hyperspace like giant fish jumping out of water. Each dot was huge, bigger than anything humans had ever built. "How many?" Morrison asked. 300 ships, sir?" "Maybe more." "They're still coming through." Morrison felt his heart beat faster. This was it, first contact with alien life. For years, humans had wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now they had their answer, and it was coming straight at them. The alien ships were beautiful in a scary way. They looked like black mirrors floating in space. Each one was the size of a small city. They moved in perfect lines, like they were in a parade. Their hulls shined with strange light that hurt to look at directly. Captain Lisa Barnes was on the bridge of her ship, the UES Wildfire. Her ship was much smaller than the alien vessels. She watched the enemy fleet through her view screen and shook her head. "They sure like to show off," she said to her crew. The alien message came without warning. It hit every human ship at the same time. The voice was deep and cold, speaking perfect English like it had studied human language for years. "People of the third planet from your star, you will give up now. Your small ships cannot fight the great Zephyrian Empire. We have come to rule you. Do not try to fight. It will only make things worse for you." Morrison looked around his bridge. His crew was looking at him, waiting to see what he would do. Some looked scared, others looked angry. A few were trying not to laugh. "Sir," said Lieutenant Walsh, "they're demanding we surrender. All human ships are getting the same message." Morrison walked to his command chair and sat down. He had been in the Space Navy for 20 years. He had fought pirates and rebels. He had seen battle before. But this was different. This was bigger than anything he had ever faced. The human fleet had 50 ships. The aliens had 300. Each alien ship was 10 times bigger than the largest human vessel. Any smart person would look at those numbers and give up, right away, but humans had never been known for being smart about impossible odds. Captain Ryan Cooper was on his ship, the UES Lightning Strike. He was studying the alien fleet through his instruments. "Look at how they move," he told his officers. "Perfect lines. Perfect spacing. It's like they're dancing." His tactical officer, Commander Amy Rodriguez, nodded. "They're more worried about looking good than fighting well. Look at those formations." A first-year military student could predict where they're going next. Morrison opened a channel to all human ships. "This is Admiral Morrison to all vessels. You heard what they said. They want us to surrender." He paused, looking out at the alien fleet. The Zephyrian ships were moving closer, their formation never breaking. They moved like a wall of black metal, slow and steady and sure of themselves. "I don't know about you," Morrison continued, "but I didn't spend 20 years in space just to give up the first time someone tells me to. All ships, prepare for battle. Let's show these aliens what humans do when someone tries to push us around." The response from the human fleet was immediate. Ship after ship reported ready for battle. The crews were scared, but they were also excited. This was history being made. This was the moment humans would either prove they belonged in the galaxy or die trying. Captain Barnes smiled as she heard Morrison's words. "You heard the Admiral," she told her crew. "Battle stations. Let's give these visitors a proper human welcome." The Zephyrian fleet kept coming. Their ships were so big they blocked out the stars behind them. They had weapons that could destroy planets. They had shields that could stop any attack humans had ever seen. They had conquered 17 different worlds using the same tactics. They were using now. Show up with a huge fleet. Demand surrender. Watch the enemy give up without a fight. It had worked every time before. Admiral Vexhai commanded the Zephyrian fleet from his flagship. He was tall and thin, with gray skin and large black eyes. He had been conquering worlds for the Empire for 50 years. He knew how this would go. The humans would see his fleet and panic. They would try to negotiate. They would offer to give up half their planet, then all of it. Finally, they would surrender completely. It always happened the same way, but something was wrong. The human ships were not running away. They were not trying to negotiate. Instead, they were moving into attack formations. "Admiral," said his tactical officer, "the humans are powering up their weapons." Vexhai looked at his screens. The human ships were tiny compared to his vessels. Their weapons were primitive. Their shields were weak. What could they possibly think they were doing? "They must be trying to look brave before they surrender," Vexhai said. "Let them have their moment. Then we will show them real power." But Morrison had no plans to surrender. He looked at his tactical display, studying the alien formation. They were moving in a straight line like they were marching in a parade. No one was watching their flanks. No one was covering their rear. "Lieutenant Walsh," Morrison said, "send a message back to the aliens." Walsh opened the communication channel. Morrison stood up and spoke clearly. "This is Admiral Jake Morrison of the United Earth Space Navy. Thank you for your message. We have considered your offer to surrender. Our answer is no. If you want our planet, you'll have to take it. And we're going to make that as difficult as possible for you." The message went out to the Zephyrian fleet. For a moment there was silence, then Vexhai's voice came back, sounding confused and angry. "You cannot. Be serious. Look at our fleet. Look at your tiny ships." "You have no chance of victory," Morrison smiled. "You're probably right. But here's the thing about humans. We don't give up just because the odds are bad. In fact, bad odds just make us more interested in fighting. So come on then, let's see what you've got." The Zephyrian fleet began to move faster. Their weapons started charging up. Energy readings spiked across their hulls. They were getting ready to show these foolish humans the power of the Empire. Captain Cooper watched the alien ships preparing for battle. "All right, people," he told his crew. "They're bigger than us. They're stronger than us. They probably have better weapons than us. But they don't know how humans fight. They don't know we've been practicing war on each other for thousands of years. They don't know we've learned every dirty trick there is." The space between the two fleets began to shrink. The aliens came forward in their perfect formation, confident and sure. The humans scattered like leaves in the wind, breaking apart into small groups that moved in different directions. To the Zephyrians, it looked like the human fleet was falling apart in panic. To Morrison, it looked like the opening move in a chess game that the aliens didn't even know they were playing. The first shots were about to be fired. The Galactic Empire was about to learn something new about warfare. They were about to discover what happened when you threatened a species that had turned fighting into an art form. The battle for Earth was about to begin. The first attack came like thunder from the alien fleet. Massive beams of energy shot out from the Zephyrian ships, bright enough to light up the darkness of space. Each beam was thick as a building and hot enough to cut through asteroids like butter. Captain Ryan Cooper watched from his bridge as the deadly light show began. The energy beams swept through space where the human ships had been just moments before. But the human vessels were no longer there. They had scattered in all directions, moving fast and unpredictably. "They're shooting at empty space," laughed Commander Amy Rodriguez from her station. "Look at them. They're firing at where we were, not where we are." Cooper nodded as he watched the alien attack. The Zephyrians were used to fighting big, slow ships that moved in straight lines. Their weapons were designed for targets that stayed in one place long enough to be hit. But human ships were built different. They were small, fast, and could change direction in seconds. "Lieutenant Danny Brooks?" Cooper called to his engineering officer. "What do you think of their targeting systems?" Brooks looked at his instruments and shook his head. "Captain, I don't think they can lock onto us properly. Their computers are confused. They keep trying to predict where we'll be, but we keep changing course." The human ships danced between. the energy beams like fish swimming through a net. Some beams came close enough to heat up their hulls, but none found their target. The Zephyrian gunners kept firing, growing more frustrated with each miss. Admiral Vexhai watched the battle from his command center. This was not going as planned. His ships had the best weapons in the galaxy. They had destroyed entire fleets with those energy beams, but somehow these tiny human ships kept slipping away. Increase power to weapons, he ordered. Fire faster. These insects cannot escape forever. But the human ships were not trying to escape. They were moving with purpose, spreading out around the alien fleet like hunters surrounding prey. Admiral Morrison had trained his captains well. They knew exactly what they were doing. Captain Lisa Barnes piloted her ship, the UES Wildfire, around the edge of the battle. She was looking for the perfect spot to begin the human counterattack. Her weapons officer, Lieutenant Tom Miller, was getting ready to show the aliens something they had never seen before. "Captain," Miller said, "I have a clear shot at their lead ship. Permission to fire?" Barnes smiled. "Fire when ready, Lieutenant. Let's introduce them to human engineering." The weapon that fired from the Wildfire was not an energy beam. It was something much simpler and much more dangerous. A solid metal rod, no bigger than a telephone pole, shot out from the human ship at incredible speed. The Zephyrians had energy shields that could stop any laser or plasma weapon ever built. But their shields were designed to stop energy, not solid objects moving at nearly the speed of light. The metal rod hit the alien ship's shield and passed right through it like it was not even there. Then it hit the ship's hull. The explosion was magnificent. The alien vessel, which had seemed so strong and powerful just moments before, simply came apart. Metal twisted and bent. Fires erupted across multiple decks. The ship's own power systems overloaded, creating a chain reaction that tore the massive vessel in half. Admiral Vexhai stared at his screens in shock. One of his mighty dreadnoughts, a ship that had conquered worlds, was gone, destroyed by what looked like a simple piece of metal. What kind of weapon was that? He demanded. His weapons officer looked confused. "Admiral, it was not a weapon at all. It was just metal, moving very fast. Impossible. No species fights with thrown rocks." But humans did fight with thrown rocks. They had been doing it for thousands of years. They had just learned to throw them much, much faster. Captain Cooper watched as more human ships began their attacks. Each one used the same simple weapon. Metal rods, fired from magnetic rails at speeds that turned them into unstoppable spears of destruction. The Zephyrian shields were useless. Their armor was designed to absorb energy attacks, not kinetic impacts. One by one, their ships began to explode as human railgun rounds tore through their hulls. "This is incredible," said Commander Rodriguez. "They have no defense against kinetic weapons at all. It's like they never thought someone might throw something at them instead of shooting energy beams." The alien fleet began to change formation. They were learning, adapting to this new threat. Their ships spread out, trying to make themselves harder to hit. Some began rotating their hulls, hoping to deflect the incoming rounds, but humans had been fighting wars for a long time. They knew that when the enemy adapted, you had to adapt faster. Captain Helen Davis commanded the UES Stormbreaker. She watched the aliens changing their tactics and smiled. "All right, people," she told her crew, "they're getting smart. Time to get smarter." Davis had a special weapon on her ship. It was not a railgun like the others. It was something much more creative. Her crew had been working on it for months, and now it was time to test it. "Fire the swarm," she ordered. What came out of the Stormbreaker looked like a cloud of angry bees. Hundreds of small objects, each no bigger than a baseball, spread out from the human ship. They moved independently, each one guided by its own tiny computer brain. The Zephyrians tried to shoot at them, but there were too many. Their big guns could not track such small, fast targets. The swarm spread out across the alien formation, each small device looking for its own target. When they found their targets, they attached themselves to the alien hulls like metal barnacles. Then they began to drill. The small devices were not Bombs, they were much worse than bombs. They were mining tools designed to cut through asteroid rock, but they worked just as well on alien ship hulls. Within minutes, the Zephyrian ships were being eaten alive from the outside. Small holes appeared in their armor, then grew bigger. Air and water began leaking out into space. Emergency alarms rang throughout the alien fleet. Admiral Vexhai watched his ships being destroyed by what looked like a swarm of insects. This was not war as he understood it. This was chaos. This was madness. "Order all ships to ram the human vessels," he commanded. "If we cannot shoot them, we will crush them." But the human ships were too fast. They danced away from the charging alien vessels like matadors avoiding angry bulls. And while the aliens were distracted, more human ships moved into position. Captain Nicole Turner commanded a small ship called the UES Firefly. Her vessel was the fastest in the human fleet, built for reconnaissance and quick strikes. She had been watching the battle, recording everything, learning the aliens' weaknesses. Now she saw her chance. Turner's ship darted between two massive alien vessels, too fast for their weapons to track. As she passed, her crew dropped something into space. It looked like garbage, just pieces of metal and plastic floating in the void. The aliens ignored it. They were focused on the bigger threats, the ships that were shooting at them. They had no time to worry about space debris, but the debris was not random. Each piece had been carefully designed and placed. When Turner triggered the signal, the pieces came together like a three-dimensional puzzle. In seconds, they formed a complete weapon, right in the middle of the alien formation. The bomb that exploded was not nuclear. It was something much more sophisticated. It was a gravity weapon, something that bent space itself. When it went off, it created a tiny black hole that lasted for just a few seconds, but a few seconds was enough. The gravity wave rippled outward, crushing 3 alien ships, and sending 5 others spinning out of control. The Zephyrian fleet was falling apart. Ships were exploding, colliding with each other, or simply breaking apart under the stress of human weapons they could not understand or defend against. Admiral Vexhai realized that his perfect formation was gone. His mighty fleet was scattered and confused, and the humans were not finished with them yet. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we are receiving a message from the human fleet." Morrison's voice came through clearly. "Attention, Zephyrian fleet. This is your first lesson in human warfare. We do not fight fair, we do not fight with honor, we fight to win. And we are very, very good at it." The battle was far from over, but already the tide had turned. The mighty Galactic Empire was learning. What happened when you threatened a species that had been perfecting the art of war for thousands of years? The humans were just getting started. Admiral Morrison watched the battlefield with growing satisfaction. The Zephyrian fleet was no longer the perfect formation it had been when they arrived. Ships were scattered across space, some spinning out of control, others trying to put out fires that burned through their hulls, but Morrison knew the aliens were not finished yet. They were learning from their mistakes, adapting to human tactics. Already, some of their ships were grouping together, trying to protect each other. Their commanders were talking to each other, sharing information about human weapons. "Admiral," called Captain Helen Davis from the U Stormbreaker, "they're trying to surround us." 2 groups coming from different directions. Morrison looked at his tactical display. Davis was right. The aliens were attempting a classic pincer movement, trying to catch the human fleet between 2 groups of ships. It was a smart move, the kind of tactic that had worked for thousands of years. Unfortunately for the Zephyrians, humans had been using that same tactic since before they left Earth. They knew how to counter it. "Perfect," Morrison said with a smile. "Commander Pete Jackson, are you ready for Operation Popcorn?" Jackson's voice came through the communication system from his ship, the UES Thunder. "Ready and waiting, Admiral. All packages have been deployed." For the past hour, while the battle raged, human ships had been dropping small objects throughout the combat zone. To the aliens, these objects looked like debris from damaged ships, pieces of metal and plastic floating harmlessly in space. The Zephyrians had ignored them completely. Their sensors showed the objects were not weapons, just garbage drifting in the void. They were focused on the human ships that were shooting at them, not on space junk. That was their second big mistake. All ships, clear the target zone, Morrison ordered. Jackson, light them up. What happened next would be studied in military schools for the next 100 years. Each of those small objects the humans had dropped contained a tiny fusion reactor no bigger than a briefcase. When Jackson sent the activation signal, all of them overloaded at exactly the same moment. The space between the two alien fleets suddenly filled with dozens of small suns. Each explosion was small by itself, but together they created a wall of nuclear fire that stretched for thousands of kilometers. The Zephyrian ships, caught in the middle of the explosions, simply vanished, torn apart by forces they could not withstand. Those on the edges were thrown around like toys, their hulls cracked and their systems failing. Admiral Vexai felt his own ship shake as the shock waves reached his position. Emergency lights flashed on his bridge as his crew tried to understand. What had just happened? Report, he shouted over the noise of alarms. Admiral, his tactical officer said with fear in his voice, we have lost 47 ships. The humans somehow turned empty space into a minefield. Vexai stared at the tactical display. Nearly 50 of his vessels were gone, destroyed by weapons that had not even existed until the moment they exploded. How was this possible? Sir, his communications officer added, the remaining ships in both attack groups are reporting heavy damage. Many cannot continue fighting. For the first time in his long military career, Admiral Vexai began to doubt victory was certain. These humans fought like nothing he had ever encountered. They turned everything into a weapon, even empty space itself. Captain Nicole Turner was having the time of her life. Her small ship, the UES Firefly, darted between the confused alien vessels like a hummingbird among elephants. The Zephyrians were so big and moved so slowly that they could not track her tiny craft. This is like fighting battleships with a speedboat, she told her crew. They can't hit what they can't catch. Turner's job was to gather intelligence, but she was also carrying a special weapon designed specifically for this battle. Her crew had worked for weeks to modify a standard mining laser into something much more dangerous. Captain, called her weapons officer, Sergeant Chris Miller, I have a clear shot at that command ship. The one with all the pretty lights? Turner looked at her target. It was obviously important, probably carrying one of their senior commanders. The ship was trying to coordinate the alien response to human attacks, sending signals to other vessels, and reorganizing their scattered formation. Take the shot, Sergeant. Let's see how they like our laser show. The beam that came from the Firefly was different from anything the Zephyrians had seen. It was not a straight line of energy like their weapons. Instead, it twisted and curved, following a path that seemed to defy physics. The alien shields tried to deflect it, but the beam curved around their defenses like water flowing around a rock. When it hit the ship's hull, it did not simply burn through the metal. It began to spread, following the electrical systems inside the ship like lightning looking for the easiest path to ground. Within seconds, every computer system on the alien vessel was fried. The lights went out, the engines stopped, the weapons powered down. The ship became a dead hulk floating in space, its crew trapped inside without power or life support. How did you do that? Miller asked in amazement. Turner grinned. Plasma. Physics, Sergeant. Sometimes the best way to hurt a machine is to give it more electricity than it can handle. Across the battlefield, other human ships were demonstrating their own creative approaches to warfare. Captain Ben Parker, commanding the UES Hurricane, had turned his ship into a mobile factory, building new weapons from spare parts in space. Debris engineering, Parker called to his crew. What's the status on Project Frankenstein? Lieutenant Mark Johnson answered from the engine room. Almost ready, Captain. We've got 3 more torpedoes built from alien hull fragments. They should punch right through their armor since it's made of the same stuff. Parker nodded. Humans had always been good at taking things apart and putting them back together in new ways. When they started capturing pieces of destroyed alien Ships, it was only natural that they would find ways to use them as weapons. The torpedoes that launched from the hurricane were ugly, cobbled together from scraps and spare parts. But they worked perfectly, tearing through Zephyrian hulls like they were made of paper. Admiral Vexhai watched his fleet falling apart and felt something he had never experienced before in battle: fear. Not fear of death, but fear of the unknown. These humans were unpredictable in ways that made no sense. "Admiral," his science officer reported, "I have been analyzing their tactics. They do not follow any known military doctrine. Their strategies appear to be improvised in real time." "Is impossible," Vexhai replied. "No military force can function without proper planning and coordination. Sir, with respect, I believe that is exactly what they are doing. Each ship seems to be acting independently, making up their own battle plans as they go along." Vexhai could not understand this. The Zephyrian military was built on order, discipline, and following established procedures. Every battle was planned in advance. Every move was calculated and coordinated. How could chaos defeat order? But chaos was exactly what the humans were using. Each ship captain was free to try whatever they thought might work. If it succeeded, others would copy it. If it failed, they would try something else. It was warfare by trial and error, and it was driving the aliens crazy. Captain Ryan Cooper had just finished destroying another alien ship when he got an idea. "Commander Rodriguez," he called to his tactical officer, "what would happen if we tried to communicate with one of their damaged ships?" Rodriguez looked puzzled. "Sir, we're in the middle of a battle." "Exactly. They're probably scared and confused. Maybe we can convince some of them to surrender." It was a crazy idea, but that had never stopped humans before. Cooper opened a communication channel to a badly damaged Zephyrian vessel that was drifting away from the main battle. "Alien ship, this is Captain Cooper of the United Earth Space Navy. Your vessel appears to be damaged. Are you in need of assistance?" The response came back in broken English. You offer help?" "We are enemies," Cooper smiled. "Right now, we're enemies." "But you're also people in trouble?" "We can help fix your ship and get you safely away from the battle. All you have to do is surrender." There was a long pause. Then the alien voice came back, sounding hopeful. "You would let us live? Of course, we're not monsters. We just don't like being told what to do." Within an hour, 3 more damaged Zephyrian ships had surrendered to the humans. Their crews were amazed to discover that the humans actually kept their word, providing medical aid and repair assistance. Word of this spread through the alien fleet like wildfire. The humans were not just dangerous fighters, they were also surprisingly merciful to those who gave up. Admiral Morrison watched as more alien ships began to break away from the battle, their crews deciding that surrender was better than destruction. The Zephyrian formation was completely broken now, reduced to individual ships trying to survive rather than a coordinated military force. "Admiral," called Lieutenant Walsh, "we're receiving a priority message from the alien command ship." Morrison knew what was coming. He had seen it before in smaller battles. When an enemy realized they could not win, they always tried the same thing. "Put it through, Lieutenant." "Let's hear what they have to say." Admiral Vexhai's voice came through the speakers, no longer proud and commanding, but tired and defeated. The ceasefire lasted exactly 12 minutes. Admiral Morrison sat in the meeting room aboard his flagship, facing Admiral Vexhai through a video screen. The alien commander looked tired and confused, his gray skin darker than before, his large, black eyes showing emotions that Morrison could not read. "Admiral Morrison," Vexhai began, "your forces have fought well, better than we expected. Perhaps we can reach an agreement." Morrison leaned back in his chair. He had dealt with bullies before, both human and now alien. He knew how this conversation would go. "What kind of agreement?" Morrison asked. "The Zephyrian Empire is willing to offer Earth a place in our confederation. You would keep your planet but acknowledge our authority over this star system. In return, we would protect you from other threats." Morrison almost laughed. "So you attack us, we beat you, and now you want to be our protectors?" "You have not beaten us," Vexhai said quickly. We still have over 200 ships. You have less than 50. That's true, Morrison agreed. But here's what you're not understanding, Admiral. We're not trying to destroy your entire fleet. We're just trying to make you go away. And we're doing a pretty good job of that. Vexhai looked confused. You do not seek total victory? We seek to be left alone. Big difference. During this conversation, human ships were not sitting idle. Captain Sam Turner was leading a squadron of fighters around the edge of the battle zone looking for opportunities. Human fighters were tiny. Compared to alien ships, no bigger than a small aircraft, but they were fast and heavily armed. This is Red Leader, Turner called to his squadron. I see 3 damaged alien ships trying to regroup. Let's show them why that's a bad idea. The human fighters swarmed around the alien vessels like angry wasps. Their weapons were small compared to the big ship guns, but they were perfect for hitting weak spots and damaged areas. Pilot Jenny Brooks found a hole in one ship's armor and flew her fighter right through it. I'm inside their hull, she reported. Deploying surprise package. The surprise package was a small bomb designed to overload the ship's power systems from the inside. When it exploded, the entire alien vessel went dark, its crew trapped without power or weapons. That's how you disable a ship without killing everyone, Brooks said with satisfaction as she flew back out through the hole, back in the meeting room. Admiral Vexhai was getting reports about the fighter attack. His face showed growing anger and frustration. You attack us during a ceasefire? He accused Morrison. Morrison shrugged. You said ceasefire. I never agreed to one. My ships are still fighting, Admiral. And they'll keep fighting until you leave our star system. Vexhai realized he had been tricked. The humans had used the meeting to keep him distracted while their forces continued attacking his damaged ships. It was another example of their strange, unpredictable way of fighting. This is not honorable warfare, Vexhai said. Honor doesn't keep my people alive, Morrison replied. Results do. The meeting ended when alarms started blaring on Vexhai's ship. Captain Ben Parker had just demonstrated another human innovation. His ship, the UES Hurricane, had launched what looked like a normal torpedo at the alien flagship, but the torpedo split apart just before impact, turning into dozens of smaller projectiles that hit the ship's hull in different places. Each one was designed to cause a specific type of damage. Some shut down weapon systems, others disabled engines. A few were programmed to make the ship's lights flash in annoying patterns. Admiral, Vexhai's tactical officer reported, our main weapons are offline. Engine power is down to 30%, and someone has hacked our display systems to show pictures of small Earth animals. Vexhai looked at his main screen, which was now showing a picture of a kitten wearing a tiny hat. The image changed every few seconds, cycling through various cute animals that humans apparently found amusing. Turn it off, Vexhai ordered. We cannot, sir. The system will not respond to our commands. Morrison's voice came through the communication system, sounding amused. I hope you like the pictures, Admiral. My computer specialist thought you might enjoy some Earth culture. The kitten's name is Whiskers. This was psychological warfare at its most ridiculous. The mighty Zephyrian flagship, which had conquered 17 star systems, was now displaying pictures of puppies and hamsters on its main tactical screen. Captain Lavra Martinez was watching the battle from her ship, the UES Phoenix, when she noticed something interesting. Several alien ships were moving away from the main battle, not toward Earth but toward the edge of the star system. Sensors, she called to her crew. What are those ships doing? Lieutenant Bobby Clark checked his instruments. Captain, it looks like they're trying to leave. They're heading for the hyperspace jump point. Martinez smiled. The alien fleet was starting to break apart. Some ships wanted to keep fighting, but others had decided they had seen enough of human warfare. Let them go, Martinez ordered. In fact, let's help them leave faster. Her ship moved to escort the retreating aliens, making sure they reached the jump point safely. It was another example of human behavior that confused the Zephyrians. The humans would fight you to the death 1 minute, then help you escape the next. Admiral Vexhai watched as more of his ships began to retreat. His perfect fleet was falling apart, not just from battle damage, but from loss of morale. His crews had never faced an enemy like this before. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we are receiving surrender requests from 12 more ships. Their captains say they no longer wish to fight." Vexhai felt his authority crumbling. In Zephyrian culture, military commanders were expected to maintain discipline and order at all times. But how could you maintain order when fighting an enemy that had no order themselves? Captain Ryan Cooper was demonstrating this point perfectly. His ship, the UES Lightning Strike, was currently flying in loops around a group of alien vessels, firing at random intervals and playing loud music over all communication frequencies. "This is Lightning Strike to all alien ships," Cooper announced. "You are now listening to classic Earth rock and roll. This song is called Highway to Hell, and we thought it was appropriate for your current situation." The combination of weapons fire and loud music was driving the alien crews crazy. Some of them started shooting at each other by mistake, thinking they were under attack from multiple directions. "Cooper, what are you doing?" Morrison asked over the command channel. "Psychological warfare, Admiral. If we can't beat them with superior numbers, we'll beat them with superior weirdness." It was working. The alien formation was completely broken now, with ships scattered across the battle zone in small groups or flying alone. Some were still fighting, but many were just trying to survive until they could escape. Captain Nicole Turner had an idea. That would either end the battle quickly or get her ship destroyed. She flew her small vessel, the UES Firefly, straight toward Admiral Vexhai's flagship. "Turner, what are you doing?" Morrison called, "That ship still has weapons. Trust me." "Admiral, I have a plan." Turner's ship was so small and fast that the alien gunners could not target it effectively. She flew right up to the flagship's hull and attached her ship to the outside like a parasite. "Admiral Vexhai," Turner called over the radio, "this is Captain Turner. I am currently attached to your ship's hull. My vessel is carrying enough explosives to blow a very large hole in your command center. I suggest you listen to Admiral Morrison's next offer very carefully." Vexhai looked at his tactical display and saw the tiny human ship clinging to his hull like a metal tick. The human captain was obviously insane, but she was also in a position to kill him and his entire command crew. Morrison's voice came through the speakers, calm and reasonable. "Admiral Vexhai, here is my final offer. Take your remaining ships and leave our star system. Never come back. In return, we will let you go in peace and we won't follow you home to see what other interesting things we can blow up." Vexhai looked around his bridge at his frightened crew. Half his fleet was gone. The other half was scattered and demoralized. His flagship was being held hostage by a crazy human in a ship no bigger than a shuttle for the first time in 50 years of military service. Admiral Vexhai was completely out of options. I need time to consider your offer," he said. "You have 5 minutes," Morrison replied. "After that, Captain Turner is going to demonstrate what we call a controlled explosion. It's controlled in the sense that we control when it happens." Turner's voice added cheerfully, "Don't worry, Admiral. It will be over very quickly." Vexhai realized that the humans were not just better fighters than he had expected. They were also completely insane. And sometimes insanity was the most effective weapon of all. Admiral Vexhai looked at the timer counting down on his screen. 3 minutes left. 3 minutes to decide whether to surrender to a species that had arrived in space only a few hundred years ago, or watch his flagship get blown apart by a crazy human captain who was apparently willing to die to make a point. "Sir," his tactical officer said quietly, "maybe we should consider their offer." Vexhai wanted to refuse. He wanted to fight to the end like a proper Zephyrian warrior. But he also wanted his crew to live, and he was beginning to understand that humans did not make threats they were not willing to carry out. "Open a channel to all remaining ships," he ordered. The communication went out to what was left of his once mighty fleet. Ships that had been scattered across the battle zone, some damaged, others intact, but with crews too frightened to continue fighting. this is Admiral Vexhai to all vessels. We are withdrawing from this system. All ships, prepare for hyperspace jump. The response was immediate. Ship after ship reported ready to leave. Some of his captains sounded relieved. Others sounded ashamed. All of them sounded tired. Captain Turner's voice came over the radio, bright and cheerful. Excellent choice, Admiral. I'm detaching from your ship now. Have a safe trip home. The small human vessel released its grip on the flagship's hull and drifted away. Turner had been willing to sacrifice herself and her crew to end the battle, but she was clearly happy that it was not necessary. Morrison watched from his bridge as the alien fleet began to reorganize for departure. The ships that had been fighting so hard just minutes before were now grouping together like sheep, eager to escape the system that had become their nightmare. Admiral, called Lieutenant Walsh, the aliens are requesting safe passage to the hyperspace jump point. Morrison almost laughed. Grant it. Give them an escort if they want one. Make sure they get home safely. It was the final insult. The humans were not just defeating the mighty Zephyrian Empire, they were helping them leave. It was like losing a fight and then having your opponent offer to drive you to the hospital. Captain Lavra Martinez took her ship, the UES Phoenix, and several others to escort the retreating aliens. As they traveled toward the edge of the solar system, she opened a communication channel to the alien fleet. Zephyrian ships, this is Captain Martinez. We're here to make sure you get home safely. Try not to shoot at us during the trip. One of the alien captains responded, his voice filled with confusion. Why are you helping us? We came here to conquer your world. Martinez thought about that for a moment. Because you're not our enemies anymore. You're just people who made a mistake and learned from it. Everyone deserves a chance to go home. The journey to the hyperspace jump point took 2 hours. During that time, something strange happened. The human and alien crews began talking to each other over the radio. Not about military tactics or surrender terms, but about normal things. An alien engineer asked about human engine technology. A human pilot wanted to know what other star systems looked like. Someone started sharing pictures of their home planets. By the time they reached the jump point, the atmosphere had changed completely. The fear and anger of battle had been replaced by curiosity and even friendship. Admiral Vexhai stood on his bridge, preparing for the jump that would take his fleet away from Earth forever. He had one last conversation with Admiral Morrison. Human. Admiral, Vexhai said, I must ask you something. How did you know we would not destroy your planet out of spite when we realized we could not win? Morrison appeared on the screen looking tired but satisfied. Because you're soldiers, not monsters. Soldiers fight for reasons. When those reasons are gone, real soldiers stop fighting. But how could you be certain? Morrison smiled. I wasn't certain, but I was willing to bet my planet on it. That's what humans do, Admiral. We take risks that seem crazy to everyone else. Vexhai nodded slowly. Perhaps that is why you won. We won because you expected us to fight like you. But humans don't follow rules in war, Admiral. We make up new rules as we go along. The alien fleet jumped to hyperspace, leaving the Earth system behind. But the story of what happened there did not disappear with them. Within days, word of the human victory began spreading throughout the galaxy. The Zephyrian Empire, which had seemed unstoppable, had been defeated by a species that most galactic civilizations had never heard of. The story grew with each telling. By the time it reached the outer rim of the galaxy, humans had become legendary figures who could turn anything into a weapon, and who fought wars like they were playing games. Captain Sam Turner, who had led the fighter squadrons during the battle, found himself in an unusual position. Other alien species began sending representatives to Earth, not to threaten or conquer, but to ask for help. Captain Turner, said the ambassador from the Kellic Republic, we have heard amazing stories about human military tactics. Our world is being threatened by pirates. Could you perhaps teach us how to fight like humans? Turner scratched his head. I don't know if that's such a good idea. Human tactics work for humans because we're kind of crazy. You might be too sensible to fight the way we do, but the requests kept coming. Species after species wanted to learn the secrets of human warfare. They wanted to know how to turn mining equipment into weapons, how to use psychology against their enemies, how to fight without following any rules. Commander Tony Roberts was put in charge of what became known as the Diplomatic Defense Program. His job was to help other species defend themselves without teaching them to be as dangerous as humans. The thing is, Roberts explained to a group of alien military officers, human tactics work because we're unpredictable. If everyone starts using them, they stop being unpredictable. Then what should we do? Asked a tall, blue-skinned alien from the Andorian systems. Be yourselves, Roberts replied. Find your own way to fight. Use your own strengths. The reason we beat the Zephyrians was not because we had better weapons, but because we thought differently than they expected. Meanwhile, the Zephyrian Empire was dealing with the aftermath of their defeat. Admiral Vexhai had returned home to face questions from his superiors about how he had lost such a large fleet to such a small enemy. They do not fight with honor, he explained to the High Command. They use tricks and deception. They turn everything into a weapon. They are completely unpredictable. The High Commander, an ancient Zephyrian with scars from a dozen campaigns, listened carefully. And yet they let you live. They could have destroyed your entire fleet, but they chose mercy. Yes, sir, interesting. Perhaps there is more to learn about these humans. But the Zephyrian Empire had learned its lesson. They issued orders to all their fleets, avoid human space, do not threaten Earth or any human colonies. Find other worlds to conquer, other aggressive species in the galaxy heard about the Zephyrian defeat and reached the same conclusion. Humans were to be avoided at all costs. Captain Ryan Cooper was on patrol near the edge of human space when he encountered a small alien fleet. The ships immediately changed course when they detected his vessel. Unknown alien ships, Cooper called. Over the radio, this is Captain Cooper of the United Earth Space Navy. Is everything all right? You seem to be in a hurry. The alien response came back quickly with panic in the voice. Please, human ship, we mean no harm. We were just passing through. We will leave immediately. Cooper was confused. You don't have to leave. This is neutral space. You have every right to be here. No, we have heard the stories. We know what happens to species that anger humans. Please, we will go now. The alien ships jumped to hyperspace so fast they left scorch marks in space. Cooper called back to Earth to report the incident. Command, this is Cooper. I just scared off an entire alien fleet without firing a shot. They acted like I was some kind of monster? Morrison's voice came back, sounding amused. Welcome to fame, Captain. We're not just humans anymore. We're the humans who defeated the Zephyrian Empire. Within a year, the galaxy had developed a simple rule that everyone followed. Do not threaten humans. They fight dirty, they never give up, and they think losing just makes things more interesting. Some species were curious about humans and wanted to be friends. Others were terrified and stayed as far away as possible. But everyone agreed on one thing. Humans were not to be underestimated. Earth had become known throughout the galaxy not as a primitive world to be conquered, but as the home of the species that laughed at impossible odds and turned warfare into an art form. And humans were perfectly happy with that reputation. It meant they could explore the galaxy in peace, knowing that most potential enemies would take one look at their ships and decide to find easier targets elsewhere. The Galactic Empire had come to face human vessels expecting an easy victory. Instead, they had given humanity something far more valuable than any conquest, a reputation that would protect Earth for generations to come. And whenever humans told the story of that first battle, they always ended it the same way. They came to conquer us and we laughed.